This is Dave with Taboo Customs. It's going to be another video in our series on the Green Cherokee project over here. In this one we're actually going to just look at the transfer case swap that we're going to do, and that's going to be going from the 231 that's in the Jeep already to our Dana 300. We won't really cover with the prep for the Dana 300. We've done that in another video on our channel, so if you're interested in that, you know, the swapping out of the input shaft, the changing of the yokes, adding the sight glass kit, which we're going to add to this one as well, you know, go check out that video. In this one we're mainly going to, you know, show pulling out the 231. We'll install the Dana 300. We'll talk about that a little bit because there's going to be a few challenges to this install that we haven't had on the other installs because we're not going to flip this 300, and we'll take a look at that in here in just a second. So, typically when we're installing 300s and Cherokees in the past, we've all been driver's side drop, which the Cherokee already is a driver's side drop. So it's usually not a problem with the body because you can see you got a hump here underneath the driver's seat because that transfer case is kicked over. Now with this one though, we're doing a passenger side drop, so I'm not sure exactly yet how much, if any, we're going to have to modify the body down here. But we might have to modify the body. We might have to caulk the transfer case a little bit more if we can, and I'm not sure yet how we're going to figure out the shifting. So we'll kind of play that by ear, and we'll check that out as we go along. But the next step and the first step is really to get the old 231 out of here. Alright, so transfer case is out. A couple of things on pulling the transfer case out. I don't know if you noticed, but we left this bottom bolt here for last. It's mainly for safety. You know, we used our legs to support it since I'm by myself. Pulled that bottom bolt out last. That way I could just sit it on my legs and bring it down. The next step here, and I don't know if you saw, but we have a special wrench we made up a long time ago for this. It's just a 9/16 box wrench that we cut down to about 4.5, 5 inches or so. So next step, we'll just pull all of this linkage and this bracket because we won't need any of that stuff anymore either. Alright, so with our Dana 300 now, we've got in our new input housing kit. So the input housing kit makes this housing shorter so it'll fit in the AW4 better. Now, this is the first time we've used advanced adapters AW4 to Dana 300 kit, so we weren't used to having to deal with this. Normally we use the Novak kit, which is a thicker ring, which apparently gives us the spacing that we need to not have to do this, because honestly I'm not a real big fan of this one. You got to buy this other piece, which is not cheap, and you basically eliminate that seal and you go to a sealed bearing, which you know, I don't know, just not necessarily thrilled with, but it should work all the same. It's just something we didn't account for when we were planning. So now we got to take this apart, put our new housing in, put our new bearing in, and then reassemble everything. Okay, so now it's time to put our studs into our adapter. So the easiest way we found to do this, and we've already had this Dana 300 installed, we figured out where we want it caulked, and then we went ahead and we marked one of the holes while it was down there and caulked. So we know where we want this bolt hole to be. We want to use that bolt hole. Then we're going to use our gasket here, and we'll line up that hole so that we can see what other studs we need to install, and we'll just put a mark next to them or on the outside so that we know out of all of these here, you know, these are the ones that we're going to install studs into. Definitely don't want to guess, because that thing is heavy whenever you're down there trying to put that transfer case up in there. So next we'll go ahead and install our studs. And another reason you'd only want to do these once is that, you know, you've already got red Loctite that come with them. We'll double nut the stud, which will take it'll take two 9/16 end wrenches. We'll tighten these two nuts down on each other. Probably need to, there we go. That should allow us to tighten the stud down in. We'll basically go till we bottom out on our shoulder, and we'll repeat that process for the other 5. Alright, so we've got our Dana 300 set up to now bolt to our AW4, and what we've got to do here is, since this was a driver's side drop, and you can see that there's a large space here that's open because the transfer case was over in this area. Unfortunately, there's not much space over here. So we're going to end up having to remove the exhaust completely. The customer's going to run brand new exhaust whenever we're done. And then we're actually going to end up having to cut the body here and open this space up so we can clock the transfer case up. I mean, we could try to run it down, but it'd really hang down real far if you tried to clear everything here. So in the next couple of steps, we're going to remove this. We're going to take a look at our transfer case, see how far back we're going to have to cut, and then we're going to go ahead and open up the body over here. Alright, we've got our transfer case down here. We're getting ready to mock it up, and really what we're trying to do now is we're trying to figure out how much space we're going to have to create here. The exhaust is gone, and so we've got it over. We've roughly got it clocked a little bit, kind of where we think we're going to have it, pretty close. And then we've got it lined up with the center of the transmission, and we're basically going in and we're marking out here at the rear how much clearance we're going to have. We're looking at the side, and then also going up here and marking the front. Now at the front, we are looking at possibly keeping the original shifters. We could go to a cable shift. We haven't decided. Right now my plan is to go ahead and make room for the original bracket that the shifters were on, and we'll see where we come out with that. If that doesn't work, we'll just cut that off. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go in here, we're going to drill a few holes, basically to outline up top where we need to cut out, because it's going to be a lot easier to cut this from the top than it is underneath the Jeep here. And once we get that going, we will get this up here and see how the transfer case fits. Okay, so we drilled our holes in here. We've got a hole here, 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 and here, and then we've got a hole somewhere under this brace. And we're going to have to take out some of this brace, so we're pretty much going to cut right along that little stiffening rib. Go ahead and cut part of this brace out. Then we will cut along here, because I don't think I need to take as much out for these shifters up here as I do the transfer case. And we'll cut here. We'll cut along this, and we'll be able to pull the bottom back, and then we'll put some cuts here so we can pull the transmission tunnel back. We don't know how far we're going to go, so that's why we're not going to completely cut it out just yet. We're just going to try to pull it back, make the room we need for the transfer case. Then we'll get the rest of the the cross member and everything going, and some of this we may actually go back, seam weld this shut, and then build our panel or fill in from there. But we've got to kind of see where we fall out first. So let's start cutting. Alright, so we've got our hole cut over here. Hopefully enough clearance to get a transfer case up in there. So we're going to basically just put it up in there, and we're trying to see if we've made enough clearance and start to look at how much we're going to want to clock the transfer case. You saw us kind of move it around quite a bit. Really I had a couple of options for clocking, and unfortunately the where the adapter is actually bolted to the transfer case was in the middle of those two options. So we had a really low option, and we had an option that was a little high, but maybe it's not too high. We could actually just drop the transmission a little bit. I think we're going to be good with our angles on our drive shafts. I mean, that would be the main concern. But you can see here that we did protrude through the tunnel quite a bit. And you can see that in the process of playing around with the clocking, we did actually come in here, had to add a little space in the front. We had to go quite a bit higher here on the shifter. And what we'll do is whenever we go to rebuild this in, we'll build a panel over this section, and then we'll probably build a flat box over here and come out and go down so that we can put a nice shifter here on top and get some boots and get everything sealed up. But anyway, we did get it clocked, and it looks pretty good. I think we're going to have to probably take some of this out here, because you can see our drive shaft is going to be really close, and we're going to use a CV joint drive shaft on the front, so that's going to go out pretty much into there. So we're going to have to probably cut some of this out, build a new panel there as well. Okay, so we've got our JB Fabrication shifter in now for our transfer case swap. Unfortunately though, we're going to have to make several modifications to it. One of the first things we have to do is we are going to have to go in here and cut a little bit more out of this. We're going to end up with this boot up here pretty high, and also we noticed that down here, you can probably hardly see it, we went ahead and bolted our drive shaft in just temporarily so we could see what kind of issues we had, and we actually have a clearance issue here with our drive shaft. So we'll have to cut this back a little ways as well, and that'll be the next step here. Alright, so now with enough clearance to get started on the shifter, what we're going to have to do is bolt our little sleeves to the shift forks here, and then we can start bolting our shifters up to the actual transfer case and seeing what we have to adjust. Actually, take that back. We won't be able to do these until later. So those go like that. So as you can see, our issue is they basically both hit right here, and honestly, I don't know if we're going to be able to get that bent enough. I think what we're actually going to have to do is go in, take and cut this here, rotate this up some, and re-weld it, because I don't think even bending it right here is going to give us enough room. Okay, so with this shifter, what we ended up actually doing was going and putting this into a small press and actually flattening out this bend here. So now we have enough room to be able to heat up this bar up here and bend it over to where we need it, and the flange here isn't hitting our tunnel up here now, so we'll be able to get it to hopefully where we want it. But now I need to go and basically I'll have to duplicate this with this one. Okay, so here's where we're at after we straightened these pieces out. Obviously sticking over in the passenger side quite a way, so we don't need it in the passenger side guy's lap, but you know, I think we're in pretty good shape actually. So with this boot and where we're going to put it, what we're going to do now, see, our boot is going to be up about there, so a good amount of these shifters will be covered by the boot, you know, even a little bit above our marks there. So now what we'll be able to do is I think we can just go heat up this joint here, this bend, and actually bend this to pretty much where it's up here close to the shifter but not in the way of the shifter. And then the same thing with this one, bend it up and get it up there almost straight up and down here at the dash. Then we'll put our seat in and see how it looks. Okay, so what we're going to need to do is we're going to want to bend this right here, straighten it out quite a ways. Now the instructions say to basically take a propane torch and heat this up to where it's just a little bit red, and then what we're going to do is we are actually going to take a large wrench and a crescent wrench and then use that to try to bend that towards us. So we're going to want to put where this point is, basically where that red spot is in the bar. So let's see how long it takes to get that red. Okay, so now that we've got our shifters installed, it's time to do the big job, and that is cover up the massive hole that we have created. So it is a difficult job, but really it's just a lot of time and a lot of parts to figure out, and as long as you take your time doing it, it shouldn't be too bad. The way we do it is we're actually going to build this in a lot of different pieces and kind of just piece it together as we go. Obviously, you know, we've done this a lot, so we can make it look pretty good. Sometimes it's hard to make those look good like that, but we'll get there. So what we'll do is we'll use a poster board, and we'll actually start out with making templates. So for instance, this is the piece we're going to start out with here for the top. And so we've started out here in the center. You can kind of see from our template, then we'll draw it up, we'll plasma cut it, and make our actual piece. It goes in place, and typically you can get pretty close by doing that, and we'll basically just piece it together. So for the rest of the video, we'll probably go through that and fast forward, because honestly this will take us probably a good 4 to 5 hours to get completed. So here we are at the end, taking a look at our transfer case cover and the shifters. You can see here, this is with the seat slid all the way back, and then we've got about 3" of adjustment to move the seat forward, which is pretty good, all things considered with the room that we had. You can see the shifters. We really like the position of the shifters. We wanted them as close to the transmission shifter as possible, but of course not interfering with it, and be able to be easily grabbed from the driver's seat. And what we did to kind of make things a little bit easier is, you know, we moved the rear output shifter to the rear, so that we could get those more in line, so that they are closer to the driver's side. So in summary, on our Dana 300 passenger side drop-in, our Cherokee here, if you're looking to install one of those in a passenger side drop, I'll just warn you, that tunnel is a ton of work to make it come out nice and clean. So just be aware of that. However, it does fit. You can make it work.
and we're really happy with what we've got here with our shifters and with our transmission tunnel and everything else there. So just be aware of that, and thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, you can get a hold of us on our website, taboocustoms.com, or on our Facebook page or Instagram. Thanks.